Hey guys, welcome back. This is my chapter 2 video. Every once in a while in these videos I throw in an opportunity to earn a bonus point just by letting me know that you're watching the videos. So here's your first opportunity. Where does my mom live? I'm there right now. She lives in a beautiful town called Beaufort, North Carolina. I made the first couple videos from her pool, and now I'm kind of running around the development trying to find quiet places where nobody will interrupt me. So anyway, if you will either text or email me that my mom lives in Beaufort, North Carolina, I'll add a bonus point onto your grade. And I'll do that occasionally just to see who's watching the videos. I think it's kind of interesting. Anyway, factors of production. One of the key ideas in chapter 2 is this term called factors of production. Factors of production is an unnecessarily fancy term economists use for the resources that are used in the economy to make things. I'm going to let you read those definitions. They're pretty simple, but labor, capital, and natural resources are three types of factors of production, and then human capital is sort of a subcategory of labor. So keep those in mind. I'll use that term again. So probably the trickiest and most important concept here is this curve called a production possibilities curve. So the definition's on the screen. Production possibilities curves show you all possible combinations of two goods that a company or a person or an economy can produce given existing resources. So when it says given existing resources, that's those factors of production. So given a certain set of labor, capital, and natural resources, here's what this business can produce. So the example on the screen is right out of your book. It's a company that produces both skis and snowboards. And given their existing factors of production, here are all the possible combinations that they can produce. So a point like point A up there shows you that this business has decided to use all of their factors of production to produce skis. And if they do that, they can make 200 pairs of skis, and then they are therefore making 0 snowboards. At point C, they're taking all of their factors of production and making snowboards and making 100 snowboards and 0 skis. Point B, they're using their factors of production and making a little bit of both. So they get 100 pairs of skis and 50 snowboards. So that's what a production possibilities curve shows. But it is important to remember that it is given their existing factors of production or existing resources. Okay, so the slope of this curve has an important interpretation. It shows you opportunity cost. It shows you what we call an opportunity cost ratio. So if you do the math, I won't go through it, but if you were to do the math here, you'll find that this production possibilities curve has a slope of -2. That tells you basically the trade-off that this company has to make between skis and snowboards. So for every 2 pairs of skis they give up, they can make 1 more snowboard. So they would have to look at prices and marketing and things like that to decide how much to produce, but that's the trade-off that they have to make in production. So that's really what a production possibilities curve shows. This relates to 2 key terms. Absolute advantage just means that someone or some country is better at something or can do more of it in absolute terms. That is actually less important than you might think. We're not going to talk about that much, but you know, if 2 people go for a race and do a 100-yard dash and I win, great, I have absolute advantage at running. But what's more important is comparative advantage. Comparative advantage refers to the ability to do something at a lower opportunity cost. So even though one person might have absolute advantage at some job, someone different can have comparative advantage, and it's the comparative advantage that's much more important for our purposes. So I'll talk about why as we go through. So again, this is right out of the book. This is showing you that same business making skis and snowboards, but now they have 3 different plants. They could be in 3 different countries or 3 different states, but 3 plants making these things. And each plant has different opportunity cost ratios, different trade-offs between making these goods. That's because different plants have different resources, different factors of production, different workers, so they can produce in different ways. So I'm not going to go through all this, but hopefully you can, maybe if you have to pause the video, make sure that you understand the trade-offs there, and I'll ask you who has comparative advantage in making snowboards. What that really means is who can make snowboards at the lowest opportunity cost. So clearly it's plant 3 because they can make a snowboard and it only costs them 1/2 of a pair of skis. even though they do not have absolute advantage. Notice. So that's the important idea there. Now let's flip it around. Who has comparative advantage at making skis? Now I've just flipped over or inverted those ratios, and you should see that plant 1 has the lowest opportunity cost and therefore has comparative advantage at making skis. Again, make sure that makes sense. I'm not going to give you much more detail than that, but make sure that makes sense to you. Make sure you can figure that kind of thing out on your own. You'll be doing that in the practice exercises to come. Let's see. Recall that the production possibilities curve represents full use of all of your factors of production. So if you're on that curve, that means you're using all of your factors. Point B then would mean that you're not using all of your factors of production. You've got some labor, some resources, natural resources or capital that are not being utilized. So you could be producing further out, but you're not. Point C is impossible given your existing factors of production, but by getting more factors of production or some technology that improves your efficiency, you could get out to point C. But that's, the way you interpret this curve is point A or anywhere along that curve means you're fully using the factors that you have. You may have noticed that sometimes I show you production possibilities curves that are linear and sometimes they are curved. A linear one just shows that there's a constant trade-off or constant opportunity costs between two goods. And that might be realistic in some settings. In a lot more settings, the curved PPC is more realistic. That means that you have different opportunity costs at different points. This shows something called the law of increasing opportunity costs. Basically, the reason for this is that your resources, your factors of production, may not be equally suited at producing your different goods. So, for example, if I had a company that makes computers and cars, I'm going to have some capital, some machinery, and some people and workers who are much better suited at making computers and don't know much about cars. If I try to make them produce cars, they're going to get less and less efficient. Similarly, I have some capital and some people that are better suited to cars. It's going to be really hard to make them produce computers. So think about that. It's kind of a brief explanation, but that's the reason for the curve production possibilities curve, which you see sometimes. To just extend that, let's think of a production possibilities curve for a country. This is one not showing two goods, but two categories of goods. So capital goods, consumer goods. It should make sense that a country is going to have certain labor, certain natural resources, certain capital that are better suited to producing each of these. So as we shift production from capital goods to consumer goods, at some point you're going to get less efficient because you're taking your experts, your things that are better suited at making capital goods, and asking them to make consumer goods. So anyway, sometimes you will see these PPCs for an entire country. Sometimes it's just for a single business. So the interpretation is basically the same either way. This is an example out of one of your exercises. You've got a table. The table there basically shows the two endpoints of a production possibilities curve. So Tom can produce 28 coconuts or 14 fish in a day. So if I ask you a question like, what does it cost the group when Tom harvests one coconut? You divide 28 by 28, you get 1. So divide 14 by 28, and you get 1/2. So what that tells you is every time Tom produces one coconut, he gives up half of a fish. So that should help you on the first exercise. Same answers for Johan and Betty should help you as well. As far as key points of this chapter, recall that specialization and trade absolutely create wealth when two countries voluntarily engage in trade. That is absolutely true. For that reason, economists usually favor trade, although there are pros and cons and there are winners and losers. The basic idea is that when two countries engage in trade, both will end up wealthier overall, but some people within each country will win and some will lose. So I think I'm almost out of time, so here's just kind of a reminder about what's coming up, and that concludes the video. Thank you for watching.